All right, well, hello there, everyone. Today is Thursday, March the 23rd, the year 2023. And I have with me today a guest that I've been looking forward to having on my show. And I'm sure all of you are going to greatly appreciate her. So before we get started, I'll say my disclaimer real quick. I'm Mazske Finance, coming to you currently from South Florida. I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist, since I do try to talk about living healthy. So with that being said, the way I'm going to do a quick introduction here is I have this lady with me. She's actually has written her first book. So to introduce her real quick, I'm going to read a quote on the back of the book, and then I'll turn the floor over to her. All right, so on the back of this book, it says, add time to your day, money to your wallet, and years to your life, all the while enjoying delicious food. Sounds too good to be true, but it's not. You'll find it in Toni's fantastic book. So with that being said, there's Toni's book. But with that being said, Toni, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
All right, sounds good. Well, I guess to get this started, if you can give a little introduction to who you are and where you came from, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
I am from Sacramento, California. I have been running Plant-Based on a Budget, which is my brand and the name of my book, for 11 years now. And I was able to take a lot of my life experience as someone who's been on a budget pretty much my whole life. I was born to teenage parents, and then I lived with my grandparents early on. And then when my dad came back from the Navy, when I was 11, I went to live with him, and we lived sort of the bachelor life together. And then from there, I became a vegetarian when I was 18. I was living below the poverty line most of my 20s until pretty much I got married and had a dual income household, and lived paycheck to paycheck in massive amount of debt, and was able to use food as a way to save money, all while not sacrificing the deliciousness and the health benefits that come with plant-based eating. So that has been my specialty. It has been what I have dedicated all of my adult life to, and how I have also benefited greatly personally.
Okay, that's fantastic. And it's interesting because you mentioned your dad was in the Navy, because I was in the Navy as well. It's a little Navy guy right up there.
Yeah.
I mentioned you living outside the US. I was in the Navy station outside the US. So that's how I was there. Okay. But I wish, back as a young guy, YouTube wasn't around yet. And when I got into my first career after the Navy, I didn't make a lot of money. And even back then, I wanted to eat healthy. And I'm not a vegetarian still. I still like to eat meat, but I wanted to eat healthy, but I found it to be a struggle at times to buy healthy food when unhealthy food was always so cheap. But yet, if you were around back then, or if your book was out back then, I would have known that was not correct. My way of thinking was not correct. So with that being said, how did you discover you could write a book? Number one, write a book like this, but number two, write a book on how to, as you say, have a plant-based on a budget, quick and easy. How can that be done on a budget, quick and easy?
Well, what you're thinking about how expensive food can be, how healthy food can be expensive, is a very common misconception. I hear it all the time with the dollar menu and with things like mac and cheese being so cheap, or frozen packaged meals that are $1 for a serving or $2 for a serving. And so I understand why people think that, but I really think the serious issue is that there is a huge lack of nutrition information. And I remember when I first learned about how the food that I ate was impacting my body, it was just, could not believe it. I was running track. I was feeling sick all the time, and I couldn't understand why. And my coach said, okay, well, what are you eating? And I thought, well, that's a weird question. Why would that matter? Because food to me was all about how it tasted, filling my belly up, and not so much about how it was going to make me feel in the moment afterward, how it would affect my performance, how it would affect my long-term health. And so once we teach that more commonly, I think people are going to live under that misconception that it is too expensive to eat healthy. And that's the genesis of plant-based on a budget. I had a lot of people in my personal life who were suffering from type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and I'm talking severely suffering, amputations and death. And it's really sad when people you love feel sentenced to poor health due to their finances. It's something that I heard over and over. It's too expensive to go to Whole Foods or the Natural Foods Co-op or wherever healthy people shop. So I wanted to teach that you can shop at places like Walmart and Dollar Tree and wherever you have that's nearby you, and still focus on eating whole foods. Now, the primary audience that I serve is 65% meat eating. They love meat. They're not looking to be vegetarians, but they are looking to incorporate a lot more plant-based dishes into their rotation. So maybe not eat as much meat. And it's also universally, all of the research that I've done, I've read every budget cookbook, vegetarian or not, eating less meat is always a tip. Doing meatless Mondays, doing vegan before 6 p.m. And it's because plant-based proteins like lentils and split peas and beans are so affordable. And right now, meat prices are through the roof. So I really suggest people try at least incorporating more lentils and beans into their diets, because it's more economical, it's healthy, you don't have cholesterol, and with the right flavoring, you can really make it so that your family's not missing the meat. And I have a big meat loving family. One of my favorite things to make my big meat loving family are lentil tacos. And I cook the lentils in the same way I cook the ground beef. I use the same seasonings. I also top the tacos with the same toppings. So the textures and the tastes are the same, and they're not missing the beef at all.
That's interesting because I've learned to love lentils as an adult. I first had lentils when I was living in the country of Panama. So we just had lentils the other day. Okay. But when you say you would cook lentils for tacos, and did I hear you correctly that you would cook them in the same way you would cook the ground beef?
Cooked lentils. So I'm sorry, when if I do a batch of lentils, I would saute them up with onions and garlic and or maybe some bell pepper, and use the same taco seasoning packet that I would use in the same way that I would cook that ground beef. The lentils have to be cooked beforehand, and there are a lot of easy ways to do that. If you have a pressure cooker, you can get it done in 8 minutes. Otherwise, it's about 20 minutes on the stovetop. And all you really do is steam it as you would rice.
Okay. That sounds good. I will give that a try sometime. Okay. All right. So let me ask you this then. I think you mentioned you've been on this, say, plant-based journey for 11 years. Your book just came out this year, I believe. So what led you to the point where you wanted to sit down and write the sort of book that you did write?
I have been running plant-based on a budget for 11 years. I've been vegan for 16 years now, and it has been a real pleasure and privilege to be welcomed into so many different kitchens. I have had the experience of talking to literally millions of people on a regular basis through my social media and website for all of that time. And it is just the coolest thing to hear how people want to eat more plants, but really feel like they need some assistance. And so I get to step in and address those pain points. And what I've heard over and over is that it's time, money, taste, and convenience. And I wanted to address those pain points in Plant-Based on a Budget, Quick and Easy. It's all right there for you. It's going to be painless in the kitchen. Your family who may love their meat and cheese and eggs won't complain. And I made sure that I could really walk the walk by having 100 recipe testers. That's what really made it a different kind of book. I worked with 100 recipe testers, many of whom ate meat and many of whom had children who were picky or lived in areas that were not California. California has an abundance of produce that is inexpensive because we grow it here, but I had people who lived in rural areas or urban areas that don't have easy access grocery stores. And I wanted to make sure that they could also use these recipes easily and that their families would enjoy them and that it wasn't going to take them a long time after work. We're all so busy and I don't want that to be an obstacle to healthy eating. So that's why I focused on a book that was a comprehensive resource for people who wanted the solution to those pain points.
Okay, that sounds good. And I know your book just came out this year, copyright's 2023. So I know you're extra busy now, I'm sure, with everything you're doing. But in your mind, if you think about it, is there a second book that may be coming about at some point, or are you just going to leave it this one for now?
Well, this is actually a follow-up to my first book. That's called Plant-Based on a Budget. This is called Plant-Based on a Budget, Quick and Easy. And the difference between the two is that when I wrote Plant-Based on a Budget, I had a lot more time than money. So I cooked from scratch with everything I made. I made bread from scratch. I made pizza dough from scratch. I cooked my beans from dried beans. And I showed people how to do those things if you were on a really super tight budget. But with this book and where I am currently in life, I'm now married. I now have more responsibilities. We have a house, we have a dog, I have a business. I am not as likely to make my bread from scratch or my pizza dough from scratch. So now I give and tricks and also just different kinds of cooking techniques to get in and out of the kitchen as fast as possible while still having a delicious meal you can enjoy that is going to leave you satisfied just in the moment, but to come.
All right, that sounds good. That sounds good. Well, let me ask you this then. From the folks who tested your recipes, from feedback you've gotten so far in your book, if you had to pick, if someone asked you, say point blank, they said, Toni, I love meat. 80% of my diet is meat. What in your book, which recipe should I try first? Or what are 3 recipes I should try first so you can convince me to eat more plant-based than to eat so much meat? So what do you think?
I really tried hard not to give meat replacements and instead have meals that are going to hold on their own, that were familiar, and not make it so that people are going to miss the meat because they're already familiar with this type of dish. So one example of that would be a pesto pasta. And you can do a lot of different things. Like I made all of my recipes extremely versatile. So you could use seeds instead of pine nuts, like sunflower seeds that are going to be high in protein, or you could use a mixture of pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, and they're also affordable, way more affordable than pine nuts, which is what you traditionally use, and which I have seen literally for $50 a pound. I'm not even joking. They get very expensive. So we're talking more like $150 per pound for raw sunflower seeds. So it's going to be economical. People like pesto, and I also give swaps for if you don't have basil, you can use parsley, you can use a different kind of green, you can even use kale. And because the other flavors are still going to be there, you're not going to miss it. And I try to put together those types of meals instead of full on meat replacers that people will be like, this definitely is not meat. Because I know what my family is like, and it's hard for me to say, okay, this is supposed to be an egg scramble, and they don't think that at all. But I have been vegan for 16 years, so I think that, and they're like, nope, that's not it. So I've tried with this book to instead create recipes that are going to hold on their own and still satisfy my family.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, I appreciate all this information, and I'm really looking forward to testing out some of your recipes because, as I said, I still eat meat, but my plant-based diet is probably 80%, 85% of what I eat now. So I don't eat,
Nice.
right? But with doing that, I'm eating I eat very diverse plants, but I'm eating kind of the same thing over and over without having plant-based recipes to cook. So for somebody like me, I think this book will really come in handy because I can now do some experimentation and hopefully create some creative dishes to help spice up the meals that we are eating.
I really like this for people who are just stepping into plant-based eating. It says 4-bean, or you can use any bean really. Chili. This has black beans in it, but you can also use pinto beans if that's what you had, or kidney beans if that's what you had. And I tried to include optional. So this is the ingredients list, but these are all swaps and optional additions. So if you have these things or you don't have these things, these are others that you can use instead. I wanted to be as budget conscious as possible. And but what I like about this recipe is that it's $5 to make. I went to Walmart recently and was able to buy everything that I needed for $5. It feeds 6 to 8 servings, and it can be something that's made on, we'll say, a Sunday, and then switched up throughout the work week so that you're not tired of it. So maybe the first day you can eat it as is, but the second day you can eat it over sweet potatoes. And then the next day you can eat it over a bed of brown rice with some lemon juice or lime juice and some chopped cilantro and some chopped onions on top, and switch it up so that you're not totally tired of the thing that you've meal planned for the week, which I know happens a lot.
Okay. All right. That sounds good because I will give that one a try. And I know with my channel, as you know, I primarily talk about investing, but then I've been talking about living healthy in the past few weeks and eating healthy. And I know out of the folks who watch my channel, various ones have reached out to me who are on a tight budget and they want to know how they can invest when they don't have a lot of money. And hopefully those folks will be watching, because if they're on a tight budget, without me knowing them personally, if they're trying to invest, when I talk about eating healthy, they might be kind of saying, Maskey, we can't afford to eat healthy. But if they watch this, watch you talk like this and listen to what you're saying, and they get a copy of your cookbook, they, like me, can learn we can eat healthy while on a budget. We can eat healthy much cheaper than not eating healthy, or just as cheap as not eating healthy. So it's, to me, it's a sort of book. I use the phrase, it's win-win. It's win-win for all of us, you know, no matter who we are. If we had this book, I got the bookshelf behind me that's empty because I'm moving. But if we all get a copy, add it to our bookshelf, use it a lot so it gets kind of dog-eared over time, and just learn, like I'm trying to do as I'm older, learn to enjoy each and every meal that we eat. Create tasty, delicious, healthy dishes to eat. And it's better for us, it's better for our families. And the more we can share the message, it's just better for everyone.
Absolutely. And it also really helps save money too. having a meal plan, being thoughtful about your grocery shopping and the food that you're eating instead of shopping impulsively or not having a plan and stopping at the drive-through or at Chipotle or at a restaurant, that all adds up. And so to think about what we're eating and be intentional about what we're buying and making sure it's within our budget is going to help save money. And that's what it did for me. It kept me more disciplined so that I could work my way out of debt and start saving money.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. And let me ask you this, and we'll wrap this up soon because I know we're both on a time clock here. But what about one last question, I guess, is what about eating organic versus not organic? What are your, I know we don't have a lot of time, but what are your thoughts on that?
My thought is that if you are on a tight budget, and I usually work with people who are being very mindful of their spending, uh, and it's going to be the difference of eating the produce or not eating the produce. I would say eat the conventional produce, and you can wash it thoroughly and still receive the nutritious benefits instead of foregoing a diversity of produce because it's not organic. So that's always my thought. And I recommend to anybody who is budget conscious to eat the conventional produce instead of not.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, well, I appreciate this, Toni. So I guess before we wrap it up, I'll give you just the last couple minutes. Is there any, do you want to talk about how if folks want to reach out to you, how they can do it, or your website, or just give some final thoughts, and then we'll kind of close this out.
I am always available on Instagram to chat with anybody who's interested about eating plant-based or who has any questions or concerns. I'm at Plant-Based on a Budget. And just remember that it is one meal at a time. You don't have to go full out vegan today. It can be over a long period of time that you incorporate more plants. And that's how I did it. It took me many years to be vegan, and maybe you don't even have that as a goal. Just continuing to introduce more plants into your life will give you benefits to reap for many, many, many years. And if you want to check out my book, it's called Plant-Based on a Budget, Quick and Easy. It's available anywhere books are sold. And thank you so much for chatting with me today.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on my channel. Hopefully this will help a lot of people. I will put a link below to your website. So folks, if you want, look below, you'll find that link. So with that being said, Toni, thanks so much. Thanks audience for watching. So for Toni and Mazske Finance, have a great day. And we are going to sign out. Bye-bye.